All right, everyone. Welcome to another Basement Mini Arcade rant, or BRAP rant, as I like to call them, refer them to. Happy Friday to everyone, and a happy Veterans Day. I'm actually off of work today, in observance of Veterans Day, and so just want to take this moment to thank all those who have served our country, give us the freedoms to do these kinds of things, voice our opinions, and just allow us to live the kind of lives that we live. So, um, just want to say thank you for all those who serve this great country. So, um, on that note, this is kind of like a morning drive, I guess. If you're on your way to work, I hope you got a nice cup of coffee and you're listening to a little bit of a basement radio arcade. And I wanted to do a rant about the Xbox One X. As we all know, it released this past Tuesday, November the 7th. Microsoft had previously reported that it was the most pre ordered Xbox console to date. And, we don't know exactly what that means, whether, it was 8 million pre orders or 20 pre orders. And I say that, I take those things with a grain of salt, especially when they don't provide numbers, because um, one, pre-ordering consoles is somewhat not new, but it's not something they did or it was done a lot when the OG Xbox came out. With the 360, you started seeing more of that practice, if you will. And we don't know what pre-order numbers. I don't think, at least I'm not aware of. We weren't aware of or have knowledge of what the actual pre-order numbers were for the 360. So I take those things with a grain of salt. And the reason I say that, and I know that some fanboys may be, upset and say, "Oh, you're just hating." No, I'm not hating, but in reality, when companies say, "Hey, we have the best pre-order," if I come out and say, "Hey, BRAP cheeseburgers have the best year they've ever had in terms of sales," and I don't provide any numbers, that can mean anything. It can mean, in theory, in reality, it could mean that I may have sold 20 cheeseburgers the year before and sold 25 this year. And that would mean that it was my best year this year selling cheeseburgers because I sold five more than I did the previous year. So we just don't know. But anyhow, um, and I kind of bring the pre-order thing up because I'm just and I don't know if because maybe Microsoft sent a lot of uh, shipments. They sent a bunch more out. But you could still buy the console. I went to Best Buy yesterday. They had Xbox One X's in stock. My local GameStop. I went on Tuesday night to trade in my Xbox One S because GameStop. By the way, if you're interested in getting an Xbox One X and you have an Xbox One S that you can trade in, then I would say and recommend anyone to go to GameStop. They're doing a $150 trade in right now for the Xbox One S console for an Xbox One X. So something to think about if you're looking at pulling the trigger. It's the big reason why I decided to get the Xbox One X. I was planning on holding out a little bit until I got a 4K television, and I just didn't want to miss out on the trading value of $150. And I think it all came out with the warranty I might add, with the 2-year warranty that I purchased from GameStop. With taxes, my total came out to be 200 and to about $230, and so I should be receiving my. I think it's arriving today, actually. Yeah, my Xbox One X should be arriving today, according to UPS. so, so we'll see. Hopefully, it does arrive, but we'll see. But again, if you're looking at buying an Xbox One X, maybe you're putting it off, and you have an asset you're thinking about trading in. I would just highly recommend going in and doing that. But the day that I actually came in and on Tuesday night, which was the day that the Xbox One X launched exactly at midnight, the I just missed out. If I'd gotten there about 10 minutes before, I would have walked out with an Xbox One X. They person ahead of me actually just bought the last extra one that they had, and actually, the store manager there was telling me that they had they actually had quite a few extra Xbox One X's, Scorpio ones too, at that were not pre-ordered. So, um, and I just kind of bring this up because I was, this is kind of just me thinking out loud. It's not a knock against Microsoft. It's just, companies, when companies put out numbers like this, or what I like to refer as marketing, because it is. I mean, you have to think about it. These are publicly traded companies. They have to make shareholders happy. They have to make, the board happy and whatnot. So they put these things out there. But it just makes me think, I don't, I take things that companies say often with a grain of salt, because you kind of have to, especially publicly traded companies like Microsoft, Sony, and whatnot. So, um, Amazon seems like they really dropped the ball on shipments of Xbox One X. I did see quite a few people on Twitter um, who did not receive their Xbox One X's on time. I know some individuals that had canceled their pre-order because they went to Best Buy, which still had those in stock. And hey, Dave Elliott's in the chat. What's going on, man? Thank you for joining the BRAP rant this morning. So yeah, so Amazon kind of took a dump on this whole thing, and I am not the only reason I did the online order at GameStop, and I went to the store to do this. The only reason that I did this because it was free 2-day shipping from GameStop. And so Dave Elliott says GameStop here in the UK has Scorpio Edition. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me. Hey, Chief, tell me Happy Veterans Day, sir. Thank you. It doesn't surprise me. Amazon, when I went online yesterday, had the Project Scorpio edition of the Xbox One X in stock. Now, I'll say this: when I went to Best Buy yesterday and I saw the Xbox One X in stock, they had all the other consoles in stock: PS4 Pro, they had the PSVR, Xbox One S, PlayStation 4. Those were all in stock. I'll tell you what console was not in stock: the Nintendo Switch. And I'm telling you guys, Nintendo is going to take, if you follow the business, if you follow NPD, I think Nintendo is going to take the rest of the year. We had Matt Piscatella, who's a U.S. video game industry analyst for the NPD group. And Matt is forecasting, projecting that Nintendo will, in fact, will be the top selling console actually next year. So I'm not surprised by that. The Switch is a great console. Mario Odyssey is a fantastic game. Nintendo has dropped 2 Game of the Year contenders in its first year and its launch year. Think about that. It's huge. It's huge. I can't think of a console launch where there were 2 first-party Game of the Year contenders. Year one. Redemption says we don't know what games Nintendo have next year. We should lower expectations. You can count on Pokemon 2018. That's going to happen. And Pokemon's going to sell the daylights out of the Nintendo Switch. So, and you got to remember something too, Redemption. Yeah, they'll have a new Yoshi game too. That's true, David. So, they're going to have Bandai Namco is actually getting ready to announce 3 games for the Nintendo Switch. Capcom's on board. They have Doom coming out. They are going to have some. They're going to have stronger third-party support this time around. Xenoblade comes out. Good. Hey, Bambino, how are you doing, man? Xenoblade 2 is coming out. So they have a lot of great. They have a lot of they have a lot of great support, and that's a great point. Redemption, can they keep up the pace of year one? Uh, Who knows? Who knows? Pokemon drops 2018. That thing's going to sell gangbusters for the Nintendo Switch. I mean, we know how the phenomena that is Pokemon, and this is going to be a brand new Pokemon specifically designed for the Nintendo Switch. And Matt Piscatella, who again we had on 2 weeks ago, he's an industry analyst from MPD. Um, don't I, folks? I would not anticipate Metroid next year. Um, that's probably more of a 2019 title. So Matt was on, and he was saying with the release of Pokemon, you may have a situation where Nintendo is selling multiple consoles now within the same household. So you may have, you know, average when you average out the Nintendo Switches per household, you might be at like 1.3 or something to that effect. Pokemon can have that kind of impact potentially on Nintendo or the sales of the Switch. So, but yeah, we'll see what happens with them. I mean, can they keep up the pace? I think so. I think at least early on right now, I think they can. I think Nintendo, the advantage that they have is they really truly do offer something that's totally unique that the others do not. The Switch is a handheld console hybrid, if you will. You know, you can take it on the go. You can play your games, you know, the comfort of your home, or if you want to, you know, if you're grinding if you're grinding in Breath of the Wild, you can go in, you know, put some hours into it at your house, at your home, and then when you leave, you can take it out during your lunch break and grind out some more. So that's the appeal. Like, look at Skyrim. I mean, I love the only thing that Nintendo's missing. It's so funny. I just went on this Nintendo rant. The only thing Nintendo's missing is, I think, really are just like an achievement system, some kind of trophy system. They really need that. They need that. John, Mr. Negative, co-host on our podcast, he actually had a great idea for Nintendo for an achievement system, and he suggested they use the coins that we're all familiar with, the gold coins from Mario. And you know, when you touch the coins, it makes that little like that noise. I don't even know how to describe it, like a chinging noise or something. That like with Chivos being like the coin and making that noise. So I'm gonna just go back to and that was some great insight there, guys. With Bambino says Hulu's on Switch now. It's interesting. I didn't know that. My complaint with Nintendo is the storage or lack thereof. I gotta get another SD card. So that's the downside to that console. But um, so I want to go back to the Xbox One X, and so yeah, so it's still available. If if you're on the fence, you know, do your research. Yeah, it isn't just my initial impressions of the Xbox One X. I don't have one yet. Mine is on the way. Just an observation from, you know, from some of the reviews. And by the way, people, I got to be honest with you. I'm a little tired of people crying about. Um, I'm just tired of people crying about reviews. Some guy who claims that, you know, I used to be a game journalist. Well, that's great. That was like 15 years ago. Um, he was crying about the review that The Verge did when they were comparing um, the Xbox One X and the PlayStation 4 Pro and games and whatnot. And look, you know what? Like this idea of you can't talk about certain things in a review, according to this person who, again, was a supposed journalist. Um, this whole idea of talking about or censoring ideas. When I was a journalist, I didn't do this kind of stuff. Well, that's you. That's not everyone else. And you have every right to write things or articles the way you see fit, just as this journalist does. But this crying from a grown man, and he's really old. It's just ridiculous. This individual does this a lot, and it's kind of sad because it really takes away from I think the focus and enjoyment of video games. And I think it helps. It actually, in some ways, believe it or not, indirectly kind of creates a toxic environment, kind of feeds that fanboy narrative that we're very much against here on BRAP. And I think it's fair to compare products to other products. I think it's fair to raise questions when you're reviewing things, to offer an opinion. I don't have issues with that. As a consumer, we have to decide whether or not we agree with those opinions, and I encourage everyone to do their homework when they're thinking about if you're on the fence about Xbox One X. Look, do your homework, do your research the specs, read a variety of different review articles, and if you want one, then go get one. I mean, I'm never going to take a dump on someone for wanting a product. If you want it and you want to spend $500 on it, by all means do it. By all means do it. I was not going to buy an Xbox One X initially right away because I don't have a 4K TV. However, GameStop was this is crazy. GameStop was sending me emails, calling me because there's one GameStop that I frequent quite a bit, and the manager called and said, "Oh, hey, we're doing a trade in for the Xbox One S. I know you just picked one up recently. If you're interested, it's $150 trading towards the Xbox One X. Yada yada yada." And I said, "Oh shit, okay. I don't want to get stuck with an Xbox One S, and when I decide to upgrade a month or 2 months or 3 months down the road, I'm gonna get a $50 trading value from Xbox One X S. So thank you GameStop for enticing, kind of dangling that carrot in front of me, to pull the triggers much sooner than I anticipated. And I don't have a 4K TV now. I will say this. I think if you're planning on getting a 4K TV and you really want an Xbox One X, by all means go for it. I think if you're not planning to upgrade anytime soon, and you have an Xbox One S, you're going to do just fine with just the Xbox One S and a 1080p TV. Now, there are some benefits if you have a 1080p TV with using the Xbox One X. Super sampling. I have heard from some people who have 1080p TVs right now that have their Xbox One X connected to them, that have said that they've seen some improvements in terms of loading times, frame rates, and slightly better visuals. So there is some benefit there, but obviously the big benefit is if you have a 4K TV with HDR. And I'll say this, if you're looking at a 4K TV, please do your homework. Definitely get 4K TV with HDR. HDR is the game changer here. There are still sets out there that are 4K that don't have HDR. Trust me when I say this, HDR is the big differentiator. There's also a differentiator between 10-bit and 12-bit panels. Obviously, the higher the number there, the better the picture. So I would recommend 12-bit. And there's some look. They do your homework. I mean, definitely you want to read reviews on TVs. And if you're a bargain hunter, um, there's I forget the name of the television company. Is it TCL? At least I know here in the States. Give me a sec here. I know Vizio makes some pretty good um, TVs that are affordable. I mean, compared to um, let's see here. I'm sorry, TCL. TCL is uh, they make these Roku TVs. And TCL's actually they've been reviewed well by CNET and other media sites that cover technology. That review TVs. Um, I think you get a 55-inch one for $600 if I'm not mistaken right now, and apparently it has pretty good. When you switch it over to game mode, it has pretty low input lag, which is important. And Redemption says I have a Samsung KS 8000. Yeah, the KS 8000s are pretty good. But if you're on a budget for a 4K TV, you may really want to consider those TCLs. I typically don't recommend budget TVs, but the TCLs seem to have a lot of features, and uh, the picture quality is actually pretty good considering its price point. So that is something I would check out if you're on a budget. If not, mid range OLEDs are probably the best pictures right now. I did get a chance to see GT Sport running on a PS4 Pro on a Sony Bravia OLED. I can't say that, OLED. Um, and it looked phenomenal. And OLEDs are like, they're the best of to me, they're the best of plasmas and what LEDs do. And I have a Panasonic ST50 plasma, 55-inch in my bedroom, and I have it calibrated. And I'm telling you, the black levels on that TV are just ridiculous. The picture is amazing. And the OLEDs really remind me in terms of black levels, contrast, really remind me of what, or the kind of picture that plasmas used to deliver. LEDs and LCDs just didn't have those black levels the way plasmas did back in the days, and the OLEDs have them now. So they are a little pricey though. But LG, you can buy an LG now for I think $1,700, a 55-inch, which is crazy because the Samsung that I game on right now, I have a 55-inch LED Samsung in my basement that I game on. I think I paid like $1,500 for that 4 years ago. So they are coming down in price, but um, so great conversation in live chat, by the way. So yeah, I mean, just do your homework, read the reviews of the Xbox One X. Is this console for you? Should you buy an Xbox One X? I think it just really depends on each individual and your preference. I think, obviously, I think for the mass consumers, this is something that is probably not going to appeal to them. Obviously, this console, just like the PS4 Pro, is really geared to enthusiasts, the hardcore gamer. And look, the Xbox One X is not for everyone. It isn't. I think that if you're someone who is invested in the Xbox ecosystem, is excited about going back and maybe playing some backwards compatible games that will be enhanced, or you have a current library of games that are going to be enhanced, you're looking forward to playing those games again, uh, then yeah, I think it makes sense to go out and buy an Xbox One X. If you're someone that's not really invested, don't have any interest in those things I just mentioned, I don't know, maybe hold off. I don't, I think that's a personal decision. I think it comes down to, what you want out of your own gaming experience. I don't think I can sit here and tell everyone that they should or shouldn't. But I think it just depends on, what situation you're into in terms of the kind of gaming experiences that you want to have. There's some folks that, are okay with 1080p, don't want to go out and spend the extra money. I understand that. That's $500 is $500. It's not a cheap investment by any stretch of the imagination. And if you don't have a TV, you have to think about that too. And you're probably looking at, being out, anywhere from, a grand to $2,000, depending on what TV you get with the Xbox One X. So, but I think, I will say this about the console. I think for what it's done, what it's doing, what we've seen from Digital Foundry. By the way, isn't it funny that like Digital Foundry is no longer biased? I used to always, I used to always like look, and I got caught up like a little bit in 2013, the whole console war thing. I'm not gonna lie, I did, but when I realized how silly it was such a waste of time, and I started surrounding myself with people who just really enjoyed just talking about video games and having fun playing them. Um, one of the things that I noticed with the Digital Foundry is people would say they were biased, they would write negative things that would a slight against Microsoft, and I'm like, no, they're reporting on performance. There's no conspiracy here. And now look at it. I mean, they are I thought they gave a really good in-depth review of the Xbox One X. I think that's if you're going to start anywhere, I think in terms of reading reviews, I think that's probably the website to go to first. Read their review of the Xbox One X, Digital Foundries. because I thought they did a pretty good, thorough review. Um, but if you saw their video of Shadow War, I mean, they were just praising how well that game ran on the Xbox One X. So, I mean, it's just I think it's funny. It's comical to me that people think that there was this bias when none existed. So, Chief Tommy says I'm pretty hardcore, but I want to see what Xbox brings to the table in terms of exclusives. It's the only reason I play on consoles. Otherwise, I'd build a PC. Yeah, but I get that. I mean, I think there's some people out there that are holding out. B Money, who's one of the co-hosts on BRAP, he is not picking up an Xbox One X. He wants to see what Microsoft's bringing to the table. He wants to see whether or not they're going to invest in first party. And that's the other thing. Like, I know Phil Spencer came out on Bloomberg last week or this week and said that Microsoft was looking at investing in first party or maybe acquiring some studios. That's all fine and dandy, but they got to do it. Like, you can't. And then my other question is, well, what do you mean by first party? Like, are you talking about, new AAA IP franchises or experiences outside of Gears and Halo, or are we looking at, something along the lines of like smaller titles on the scale of Cuphead? And look, that's not a knock against Cuphead. Cuphead is a great game. It's it's going to go down as one of the best game releases this year, and that's not a bad thing. Like, I am not slighting Microsoft for releasing those kinds of games, but as a consumer, I want to know. I want to know a little more in terms of what that actually means. Is it AAA franchises? Is it or is it going to be games like Ori and Cuphead? Um, so we'll see. We'll see. Whether Microsoft is going to really focus on investing in first party. I think they should. I think they absolutely need to. I think it's great for the industry. I think it's great for them. I think it's great for the consumer base who's really invested into their ecosystem. We've seen Sony's done a great job this year um of putting out new IPs. I mean, look what they let Guerrilla Games make Horizon Zero Dawn. You look what Sucker Punch is doing now. I mean, you gotta tip your hats off to them. I mean, they're trying, they're allowing their studios to be creative, they're trusting them. So I like that. I like that a lot. I think that obviously benefits us as gamers, and that's how I think I look at this industry. I approach it. How are you guys benefiting me? Because I've spent a lot of money. It's not an expensive hobby. I mean, this is not a cheap hobby. It's very expensive. Redemption says, "I hope Sea of Thieves is good." I hope so too, because I feel like Microsoft has kind of mismanaged Rare a little bit. They, they kind of well, I think with the 360, I think Rare did a phenomenal job with supporting that console, putting out some really good content. Viva Pinata, Banjo, Perfect Dark. Um, and hopefully Sea of Thieves is a good game. I heard it's beautiful. Um, but I like to see them focus on something that is more single player driven from Rare too. I think obviously Sea of Thieves kind of falls into that games as a service model, which we've heard a lot about more recently. But I'd like to see Rare. I like to see them actually bring back maybe like a Perfect Dark. Why not? I think that would be fantastic. So, Drew says he thinks Shadow of War wasn't done to the fullest on the Pro. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know. I think if you look at and you look at Assassin's Creed, Digital Foundry just did this recently. I mean, all three. I mean, the PC, the PlayStation 4 Pro version, the Xbox One X version, they all look really good, really good. And I think that you'll see instances where The Pro will look slightly better. I mean, sorry, the X will look slightly better than the Pro, or it may be hard to distinguish the difference between the Pro and X. It's look, it's going to come down to the developers, really. I mean, it really is. But I think in most instances, we're going to see multi-plats run best on the Xbox One X. I think we're going to definitely see that. And look, and if you're someone who wants the best console versions of games, and yeah, then maybe the Xbox One X is something to consider looking at. She says, speaking of media buyers, you heard about IGM Doom review, Switch 8.5, and they rate PS4 version 7. I mean, look, here's the thing. Like, okay, I haven't read the review. I don't know, why they gave those scores, but it could be a couple things. It could be that the version of Doom on the PlayStation 4 from a technical perspective doesn't play well. And perhaps it plays much better on the Switch. And that's why you're only talking about a point difference, a point and a half. And that could be uh that could be a result of, again, I haven't read the review, but I think when you're looking at reviews, you just can't look at numbers. You have to like really dive in and read the review, because you need to remember something like, and this could be an instance where on the PlayStation 4 Pro, maybe it isn't optimized as well um, as a Switch. D. Drew says Nintendo always gets a pass. No, they do not. They got panned big time by the media and by consumers with the Wii U. Nobody knew what the Wii U was. Everyone thought the Wii U was basically like uh, um, an additional attachment that you attach to your Wii. No one knew the difference. I mean, it was muddled messaging from Nintendo, but no, Nintendo does not get a pass, and they get. You look at last console generation. There's proof in that. There's proof for that. So yeah, with that review of Doom on Switch, again, I haven't read the review, but just food for thought. It could be a situation where um, the PS or the Switch version runs better and plays better. I mean, that's realistic. No, they don't. Drew, if they don't get it passed, man. Even when the Switch comes out, they've been criticized about their. Um, People have been critical of Nintendo. If you remember more recently with their terrible voice chat feature, where with the Splatoon, you had to buy the additional headset or whatever it was, or connecting to your phone to do voice chat. So they don't get a pass. They've been panned. Look, guys. No, look. You guys got to remember something. Like there's when the reviews come out. Like if you guys were doing reviews, we all have preferences, right? We all have preferences, and as preferences come into play, we're human, and so you guys can't hold. Like I hear this like, well, we need reviewers need to be ethical, and they do. Ethical in the sense that they shouldn't be taking bribes or anything like that. But look, got to remember something. They all have you know likes and dislikes, and those things are going to come out, and that's just human nature. You guys would do if you guys are writing for IGN, if you guys are writing for Polygon, that would come out. Those preferences that you have would come out. Trust me, they would. And I think people focus too much on what's written, and as opposed to, okay, I'm reading this article, I'm reading this review based on what the reviewer says. Do I agree? Is this a game that I may want to pick up, or do I need to do more research? Sam Dillinger says, I was hoping for a bit more difference in the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro multiplats. I mean, you're going to see. Look, it's up to the developers. You're going to see some differences. You look at Shadow War, you're going to see some differences. I mean, it just really depends on the developer. Bungie has just come out. Destiny 2 will run 4K, 30 frames a second on the Xbox One X. So it's up to the developer. I mean, yeah, we would all like to see, um, we all like to see, Xbox One X versions of multiplats optimized as much as possible, so that it could really, so these, games can really utilize some of the extra horsepower there. But unfortunately, it's up to the game developers. So, by the way, some great conversation in the live chat. By the way, I really appreciate the level of engagement here, guys. Um, the other thing I was going to say too. So back to whether or not the Xbox One X is for you. Um, Again, I think from if as I was reading the reviews, digesting some of the things that I've heard from people who bought it, who purchased it day one. As I read some of the reviews and I digested a lot of this information, I'll say this: for what it does, let's see here. So people are going to look, guys. The thing with Nintendo, okay, so PSN down says, I agree. Nintendo is the only company to release two different systems with different architecture the same generation. Are you referring to the Wii U, because the Wii U is not the same generation? It's not the same generation. Yeah, and look, I agree with the $60. Uh, I agree with that statement. Like, you look at LA Noir as an example. LA Noir is cheaper um, than is cheaper on the PS4 and the Xbox One. I think it's $40, and I think it's $60 on the Switch. But you guys need to take into account too that the reason why the Nintendo Switch games are more money is because of cartridges. The cartridges are more money to manufacture. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just that's the reality of the matter. It's a that's the choice Nintendo made. You have to think about whether or not, as a consumer, that whether you're okay with that or not. If you're not, you're not. And if you're not, just move on. It's not for you. Nate, what's going on, man? And Nate in the live chat says there are a bunch of armchair gamers who think they understand development on every game and engine on the market, and they don't know the first thing about programming, yet they are ready to criticize. This is very true. We saw this with Bungie more recently, being referred to as lazy developers. Yeah, we don't know. We don't know the budgets these developers have. Just go read the story by uh, uh, Jason Schreiber and on Kotaku about what happened with Visceral Games and the Star Wars game that they were working on that got shut down recently. By the way, big news that EA bought Respawn. That's huge. $400 million. Wow. They shut down Visceral. They buy Respawn, and Respawn's working on a Star Wars game. So, eighth gen started with the Wii U. We are still with the eighth gen. I mean, the Wii. Let's see here. The Wii U released in November 18th, 2012, and a Switch released 5 years later. I mean, you got to remember something. Last console gen went like 9 years, so PSN. I think honestly, man, I think you're nitpicking there a little bit, bud. I mean, the Wii U is out for 5 years. That's 5 years is the typical, historically has been the typical length of a console generation. It just so happened that last console generation lasted, um, Jesus, let's see, 360 released in 2005, so 9 years, 8 years. Yeah, 8 years. Last console gen was 8 years. So yeah, I mean, look, they had 5 years between consoles, so I don't agree with that PSN down. It's not they're not releasing two consoles in the same generation when you take into consideration that a typical console life cycle is 5 years and the Wii U is 5 years. So, um, Redemption says, "Do you think Nintendo should have made the Switch digital only so the cost would be lower?" No, I think the issue with making digital only is that people are still buying cartridges. People are still buying physical. I don't think that consumers, at least gaming consumers, are ready for that just yet. And I think that they probably saw what happened, the pushback with what happened to Microsoft. Hey, Sean, what's going on, man? Good morning. It's good to see you in the live chat, my man. Um, Great conversations, by the way, in the live chat. Do you think EA got respawn as soon as possible because Microsoft is going to purchase a big team? I don't know, Sam. I don't know if that has anything to do with. Um, I don't know if that. I think EA picking up respawn has to do with the fact that they just lost, probably because they just lost Visceral, and that EA has a proven commodity in Titanfall. We know how talented that respawn team is with Vince. Um, Geez, this is like the second time Vince has been purchased for like a half a for like 400 to 500 million. It happened with him with Activision and now EA. Um, there was a Korean company though that worked on the mobile game of Titanfall that was actually looking to bid, or actually did bid to buy Respawn. EA just outbid them. So, and if I'm not mistaken, I think EA had right to refusal or something in their contract clause, or something to that effect. They could counter or something. I don't know. I thought I may have read that somewhere too, but I don't think it has anything to do with Microsoft. Um, to be honest with you. Dietrich wants to know: do you think they may combine some devs from Visceral and Respawn to finish the Star Wars game? I don't know. That's a good question. I hope so, because there's probably some talented people out there who are probably still looking for work. And Nate says, I don't trust Nintendo Digital only, so no, I don't think that would be a good idea. All of my Switch games are physical except Overcooked. Yeah, and again, I think it goes back to maybe the consumer's not really ready for an all digital console. Although there's rumblings out there that we could see, next console gen, diskless consoles, no optical drives. You know what that means. And Nate says, EA has a lot to prove to me going forward. I don't play their sports games. I'm not running headfirst into a microtransaction infested future. Look, man, as much as I'm not a big fan of microtransactions, they are here to stay. Um, it's look, what Take Two is getting, generating, their revenue is, or their microtransaction revenue accounts for 40% of their revenue. 48% of their revenues coming from microtransactions from NBA 2K and Grand Theft Auto 5. I mean, surprised that Take Two said, "Hey, moving forward, we're going to make games that have that model." I'm not surprised. There is a market for that, and it's not because of increased game development. We had Matt Piscatello on again 2 weeks ago, from MPD Group, and he said, he's like, "Look, it's not because of rising costs; it's because there is a market there. There is gamers are supporting this, and as long as we support it, developers are going to start implementing and integrating um, this into a lot of games." I don't. This is here to stay. I don't agree with it. I do have some concerns, because my concern is, you know, do developers start abusing this? We know about Activision and their patent that manipulates gamers to purchase microtransactions. Those kinds of things worry me, but that's a whole nother conversation. So, um, by the way, guys, if you're watching, definitely hit the like button. Chief Tomei says, "Hit those likes, guys. He's a good dude. I am a good dude. We're all good dudes here at BRAP. Look, we don't tell you what you want to hear. We tell you what you need to hear. That's what we do here at BRAP. And we look, we're passionate gamers. I mean, we really are. But we went on a little bit of a rant here with regards to Nintendo, some other things, EA. But I again, guys, great questions in the live chat. I really appreciate the interaction. Keep the questions coming. Um, so back to the Xbox One X. So I think for what it does, though, and what we've seen in terms of real world performance, I think if you're somebody who doesn't want to make that leap to PC gaming, but you want PC gaming like experiences, I think for $500, there is some value there with the Xbox One X. I really think so. Um, I think if you are solely invested in the PlayStation 4 ecosystem, you have a 4K TV, you kind of want those similar experiences, then I would recommend the PlayStation 4 Pro as well. I think at $399, um, that is great. I'm still. I will say this though: the one criticism I've had about the Pro is that it didn't include a UHD Blu-ray drive. But I understand that's probably has to do with keeping costs down. So, if that's important to you, I think that's probably something you consider when you're looking at at uh, at these iterative consoles. So, but again, I think at $500, there's some value there if you're looking to have those kinds of PC-like experiences. Notice I'm not saying PC experiences because I don't think we're going to see games native 4K, 30 frames a second on some of these more demanding titles on the Xbox One X, and I don't think we'll see uncapped frame rates or people or having the ability to run at 120 frames per second like you do on PC. I don't see that happening. I could be wrong, but I don't see that happening. So Xbox One X launch numbers, we don't have those, but um, I've seen some people speculate and say that it's going to sell more. I think Sony has said that PlayStation 4 Pro accounts for 1 in 4 sales of PlayStation units, and I saw someone say, well, they're going to Xbox One X is going to sell more. It's going to be like 2 in 4, or like 1.5 or something. And I'm thinking to myself, um, well, I don't know if that's the case because we have to think about where we are in the console cycle. The base consoles, by the way, on Black Friday are are going to be dirt cheap. I mean, you're looking at 199 for the PlayStation 4 Slim 1 TB model, 189 for the Xbox One S 500 GB model. People are going to be flocking to those consoles. I mean, the mass consumer is the which makes up 90% of the consumer base of the gaming industry. They're the ones that are going to go out and flock, or go out and flocks to buy those base consoles because of the price. And so I don't know if it's going to be. I could see it being more in line with what Sony's doing or what the Pro's doing, with in terms of sales for the Xbox One X. I don't see it being more than that. And the biggest reason, the big obvious reason, is because of the price point, $500. So um, I just want to address something here in the live chat real quick because there's some great conversation going on. D Truth, I don't know what you mean by lies, but look, man, we don't do any console war stuff, fanboy stuff in here. I don't know what you mean by that. Um, Chief Tomei says, "Yeah, I've heard that Chief. Chief mentioned something about there's some Xbox One X's failing. They are, but that's I don't think it's anything outside of what's considered normal for a launch product. So it's certainly not on the level of like a Red Ring type situation." Woody Mash says may as well just stop referring to consoles as gens anymore because X is probably technically ninth gen, especially if it starts getting AAA X only games in the next few years. I'm not look, you know, I've heard this conversation or this come up a lot. I'm not necessarily convinced that the generations are over. Ubisoft just came out and said, Woody, I don't know if you heard this. Ubisoft says they expect the newest Xbox One console or Xbox console and PlayStation console in the next 2 years. Now, I don't know about Microsoft releasing a new console in 2 years. I definitely could see Sony releasing a console in 2 years, given that they have their PlayStation 25th anniversary coming up, and I think that's in 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. So and Sony, I think, has pretty much indicated that there will be a PS5 and that will be a new gen. So I think what you'll see is I think what you'll see is new generations and these like iterative consoles, like halfway, like in year 3 or 4. So and then these becoming kind of like the base consoles of the next generation. If that makes sense. Similar to how like you have the S of the vanilla PS4. Redemptions, I hope next gen pushes for 60 frames per second. I do too. I'd like to see on the next gen consoles that we start getting those options in terms of performance options like the PC does. Where either you could play 4K, you could do 1440 at 60. Those are the kinds of things that I want to see. I want to see those kinds of options. PSN Down says, I've had a 4K TV for a year, but haven't jumped into the X. I'll wait a month to see how it goes. Some people are having issues. Sometimes small things can be blown out of proportion with the internet. Yeah, no, they can. I mean, again, I don't think the issues that are happening are anything out of the norm. According to Mads, the X1X is selling out worldwide. I don't know who Mads is, but no, I don't think it's selling out. I've gone into Best Buy. Actually, my co-host Eric Jackson, he just went to GameStop yesterday and picked up an Xbox One X. So they're still out there. I wouldn't say they're readily available. You probably can't walk into any Best Buy and find them, but they're out there. I mean, I walked into a Best Buy by my office yesterday, and they had 4 in stock. So, Dietrich, I'm not sure what you're referring to about Microsoft, what they said about the console not being true. I mean, I know that our Pinello did say 4 games, 60 frames, and he left that open for interpretation. And I think there were some people that took that as all games, because he said games will run 40. He did say games will run 4K 60 frames a second. He didn't say all games. He said games, so he left it up for for interpretation. But I never took that as all games because um, I need to see before I believe. Hey, what's going on, Sam? Sam says that would also put the PS4 on the market for 6 years. which previous generations have done. That's yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that 2 years is at least what Ubisoft is saying. I think that's probably when we see the PlayStation 5, and that's why this whole like console war stuff is such nonsense. Like I see people like making fun of people now about the pro being weaker, and it's just like, you know what? Stop, because it's got to come full circle again. You know, I used to say that to PS4 fanboys when they used to, you know, uh, when they used to harass and insult Xbox owners for having, you know, the the lower resolution version of a game. I'm like, it's just nonsense. Like just play what you like to play and don't worry about what anyone else is playing. You know, like what you like. Oh, redemption. This is actually a great point. PlayStation Redemption says in the live chat, he says PS5 needs to be backwards compatible because we know Xbox will be. You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. I don't like PS Now. The whole streaming thing, it just doesn't work well, for obvious reasons. Internet or internet speeds, lag, input lag. Um, I don't see Sony getting away from PlayStation Now because that was part of their investment in Gaikai, and that was like I think like a $500 million investment. But yeah, I agree with you. They should have some backwards compatibility. I've said this on numerous occasions. There's things that Sony's doing very well. We know we could, in terms of their hardware with the original PlayStation 4, the software they're doing well, and there's things that Microsoft's doing better. Microsoft's doing better with features, value added features, EA Access, Game Pass, crossplay. Their Microsoft is providing better services right now, I think, than Sony. Mr. Negative John, who's a co-host on our podcast, um, he's been saying that Sony is anti-consumer right now. They're not letting people, and he feels strongly about that because of some of the comments that they've made about crossplay and remember EA Access. Sony, like let the consumers, let us make that decision whether or not we want EA Access on your platform. You know, I never agreed with that reasoning that Sony gave. I forget the exact words. Had something to do with we feel like our fans, or it wouldn't add value to our fans, or something to that effect. No, that's no. Let us decide that. We're capable. We're grown. Look at the demographics. Many of us are adults. Let us make that decision for ourselves. Yeah, Nate. PS4 does have it has some version of crossplay. They're just not allowing crossplay across the board, I guess is what I'm saying. There's something to be said. I'm just reading what Witty Match just said in the live chat here. There's something to be said about upgrading. If you're not in a rush to upgrade, and as I mentioned this earlier, you don't feel like you have the need to upgrade to a 4K TV. I hear people saying, "Oh, it's the next, it's the next format 4K." Best Buy is only selling 4K TVs now. It's not true. They still sell 1080p TVs. But some guy out there said that he's a numbnuts. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Um, but I think if you don't have to have 4K content, you can wait. I mean, you're not going to miss anything out in terms of content or games by not picking up the Xbox One X, or if you own a PlayStation 4, a PlayStation 4 Pro, you're just not going to um, you're not going to miss out on anything. And that's why I was saying earlier, if you're an enthusiast, if you're somebody who wants 4K content, then yeah, this is something you definitely want to look at as a potential purchase for entertainment and for gaming. And again, I think at for what it's offering now, what we've seen at $500, throw in a UHD player, Blu-ray. Um, I think there's some value there to be had with the Xbox One X if those things are important to you. Chief Tommy says, "I got enough bills. I'm fine. I'm fine with buying games." I wanted playing them for years. I hear that. PSN Down says we don't have to worry about Microsoft or Sony leaving anytime soon. Many people have invested into PSN, Xbox Live, and that's good. Means people will stay within that ecosystem. Matt Piscatella from NPD, when we had him on, said something very interesting. Um, he said, majority of the consumers in the gaming industry, buy only a handful of games a year. They want to buy Madden. They want to play Call of Duty. They don't care about resolution. They just want to play Madden, Call of Duty. They want to play those games with their friends on the systems that their friends own. So there you go. Yeah, that's a great point in eight. Eight. Well, I think you're right that it solidifies that there wouldn't be any trouble per se with backwards compatibility with PS5. It's whether or not Sony wants to do it. And look, let's face it, they're kind of in the driver's seat right now. They don't have to, but I think they should. I think that I think that's something that if Microsoft can start pumping out some new, fresh first party IPs and really get people in the industry saying, "Oh my God, wow, you see that new game that Microsoft put out? Holy shit!" I think, and then you add in all the other things that they're offering consumers. Yeah, I mean, I think that Sony should look at this. Let's see here. Just want to make sure I didn't miss any other questions in the live chat. All right. So yeah, so you know what? If you have an Xbox One X, I would love to hear your experiences with that console so far. Definitely leave some feedback in the comment section below. Again, I'd like to read your thoughts on the Xbox One X, some of the games that you've played, what you thought in terms of how visually impressive, or maybe you feel like they're not as visually impressive as you thought these games would look. Um, but definitely, please, by all means, leave some comments in the comment section below. And hey, if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that sub button because we are giving away free games coming up this holiday. We're giving away a free game console this holiday. We're giving away a PlayStation 4 this holiday, compliments of our good friend Chicken Spaghetti. And like I said, we're going to be giving away some free games. So who doesn't like free shit? I know I do. So hit that like button, subscribe as well. If you give us a thumbs down, let us know in the comment section why you gave us a thumbs down. I've seen some thumbs downs more recently, and hey, just give us a little insight. Let us know why you gave us a thumbs down. But um, let's see here. Dietrich says, when this gen started, people were ready for the jump from 720 to 1080. This is still the same gen. Everybody's not ready for the jump from 1080p to 4K. Here's the thing, Dietrich, you have to remember something. Like people get caught up in the power narrative in 2013, but you got to remember something. Um, it wasn't so much the power narrative because if you look at what this Nintendo Switch is doing, Nintendo Switch is the least powerful of all the consoles, and it's outselling. It's winning NPDs. It's not so much about power, and I've seen a lot of people go back to Microsoft in 2013 or say that there was this power narrative. It wasn't so much the power narrative as much as it was Microsoft's muddled messaging and the fact that it was $100 more than the PlayStation 4 at the time. So, it's and it's I heard people talking about the power narrative now. I mean, it's not power as much as it is content. Uh, Again, I'll bring up Matt from MPD. We had him on 2 weeks ago, and he said that content, when there's a steady release of content, they have seen numbers or console numbers, sales numbers go up when there's an increase in content or content release for a specific platform. So it isn't, I think people put too much emphasis on the power narrative because, frankly, historically, I've been gaming for 35 years. And, the most powerful consoles haven't always won. It's never been about power per se as much as it's been about content. I think that's a misconception. Okay, so Dietrich, you say you know that, but yeah, no, you're right. Some people think that. I mean, I agree with you, Dietrich. You're right. Some people do think that, but I don't think that's not the case. And I think that when we were, I think, given how long the last console gen was, and there was a higher penetration rate of 1080p TVs at the time than, like, I hear people say, oh well, 4K TVs are selling faster than 1080p's. Yes, they are. But you have to look at the overall penetration. I mean, when these consoles launched, there was a higher penetration of 1080p TVs than there is 4K right now. And if you look at the United States, I believe 18% of households have 4K TVs right now. That number will jump to about 30% next year. So people forget that, yeah, why these TVs are cheaper. People also bought 1080p TV sets on the cheap last year. And look, and we're not even getting 1080p content on the regular. I mean, outside of streaming Netflix and Blu-ray movies, who else is giving, and direct TV, if you have that, cable's not giving you 1080p. They're giving you 720 or 1080i, whoever your cable provider is. I mean, it's not. I understand, that the 4K TVs are, outselling, but at the same time, there just isn't enough content, and there's not enough content, I think, for the mass market to go out there and start buying these things in high numbers. Because you got to remember something: people went out and bought a lot of TVs, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when 1080p's were still out, when they were cheaper. I mean, so people need to factor that in too. I mean, I'm not saying that 4K TVs won't catch on, and that they're not selling faster than 1080p TVs. But if you look at the numbers, though, 18% of households in the U.S. have a 4K TV, 30% by next year. So, I mean, so I don't know. Chief told me, I don't think you can build a 4K PC for 570. I think that's been debunked by PC Magazine. They tried it. PS announces third-party support made PlayStation 1 and 64 went cartridge based and everyone flocked to PS1. Yeah, a lot of the developers, that's actually a great point. A lot of developers flocked the and left, Nintendo, because they went with cartridges, and creatively, discs that were cheaper to produce, and creatively I think allowed developers to do things that they couldn't do with the cartridges. So, and Nate says also 4K is not as simple as 1080p. People need to remember playing 4K TV sold are not even HDR capable. That's true. They're not. There's still TVs out there. The cheaper ones, if you look, if you see like a 65-inch like Sony 4K for like $600, it's not HDR. Yeah, I did see. You know what? You're right. Rich did say that, but I'm not so sure though, because I know PC Magazine did one, and it was like $100 more. Well, I mean, 570 is about almost $100 more. I think the one that PC Magazine did was like 620 or 630 or something. So I have to go back and I need to go back and look at that video that Rich did, because I do remember that he did do that on Review Tech USA. So, all right, everyone. So I just want to give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat for stopping by today and listening to my BRAP rant. And as always, one of the things I love about these rants is that it really gives me an opportunity to really interact with you guys and talk about some of the things you guys are talking about in the live chat, field your questions. So big shout out to all of you guys. I definitely appreciate each and every one of you for joining me this morning on this BRAP rant. And hey, again, remember, if you haven't subscribed, hit the sub button. We're giving away a free PlayStation 4 for the holidays, and we'll be giving away some free games for the holidays as well. So please subscribe, tell your friends about us, hit the like button. And depending on what happens the next couple days, you could see another rant. Could see another rant. So everyone, have a great Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Get a lot of gaming on. Remember to enjoy your video games. Have fun doing so, because that is what playing video games is all about. That's what it's all about. Yes, Redemption. These games will be codes. There will be digital codes. So what we'll do is we'll drop them in the live chat. Like Redemption, we just gave Assassin's Creed Origins out not this week, but last week we did, and we dropped the code in the live chat. So sometimes we'll do like a drawing too. So all right, everyone. Hey, you know what? This is great conversations. I mean, obviously we didn't always agree with each other, but that's fine. I mean, that's okay. You can agree to disagree, and you can disagree in a way that's respectful and constructive, without doing crazy fanboy stuff like we see on Twitter sometimes. So, on that note, again, everyone, have a great weekend, great Friday. Had fun playing video games. BRAP will be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't want to miss that episode. We may have an industry guest on, so just kind of keep your eye out for that. So, oh man, Redemption. So you're in the UK. We'll probably do some other things. You know, in terms of not in terms of drawings, or you probably wouldn't. Um, we probably will select like a winner or something like that. We've done that before, so because I know that we have some viewers that are in the UK overseas. So definitely appreciate you stopping by there today, Redemption. Appreciate your time, man. So, all right, everyone. Again, have a great weekend. We'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Remember, hit that like button and subscribe. And on that note, I am going to go play some video games. Peace.